Yeah, we out here. Sick. But that's not gonna stop me. We got a show to put on, a book to edit. I wouldn't stop if I was dead. My vengeful spirit would be up in here editing this motherfucker every single day. God damn. Shoutouts to my boy Ray Radberry. Mm. Mm-mm-mm. All right, so where are we at here? We did our little summary yesterday. I can't believe there are only 160 pages of this motherfucker to go. That's 16 days. That means like we could have this done before the end of February if we keep going. But fools rush ahead. So one thing I'll tell you is that the end of this book has seen the very least editing of any of the pieces so far. I think the last chapter that we edited flowed pretty well, and it's because I knew I had to go back and edit it because it was garbage. And now it's pretty solid right there. So let me see. Kim is asking if 434 is at Washington Square Park. Yeah. Oh shit. He can't hear what I'm fucking saying because he's not on the live stream. Hold on just a second. Let me pop over because Kim is important enough to talk to real quick. He's a real one. So. So Stratum's asking, God damn, I need my voice to come together for this shit. Stratum's asking if this is like Rollerball, but I didn't see Rollerball, so I can't tell you whether it is or not. But yeah, let's get down to it. I'd like to get our 10 pages in. Prior to this is a good spot for a Starball chapter if we need one. Yeah, it is. It actually is a really good spot for a Starball chapter. Because I would like to know what the fuck the Starball is thinking at this point. Stratum says, I like the point in Rollerball where James Caan accesses the world computer and finds out that the rollerball game is a way to dupe the public into complacency. Huh. Well, I don't know. Yeah, I don't have a lot of calls to action here on the video stream. Mm. God damn. Mm. All right. Yeah, I think this is the first time where I've really been really had a cold on stream. So shots are going for 64 days without really getting super sick. But yeah, I'm definitely sick now. We went to go see a music concert last night. I guess concerts are usually music concerts, but we went to we went to go see that, and we showed up like half an hour late because we didn't care about the opening act, and they still hadn't fucking started. And word on the street was the opening act was going to open an hour and a half after the show was supposed to start. So I just fucking left. You know what I mean? Like it's a work night. I got to be up early to fucking edit. I wasn't the most jazzed about seeing the Cold War Kids. It might have been cool. I don't know. But yeah, if you're a fucking band, like later than an hour, it's too fucking late. And like if you're fucking running that late, just have your main band start. Fucking kill the opening act. The opening act is there so that people have something to do while the main act is getting their shit together. You know what I mean? Just real failure and showmanship there. But it was all right, you know. Like I was real happy to fucking leave. Well, let's see what a concert really is. Let's delve into what that word is. So a concert is, I think, really the part of the word that matters is people playing together. Okay, so concert, to playing together, borrowed from the French concert, agreement or plan, Catalan. Concert almost always, as a noun, means musical entertainment right there. What was the French reading? So it came from concerto, which meant concerto, which means I fight or I debate. Huh. So maybe the original part was like arenas or something like that. Let's check out Wikipedia. So Herbert Brooks says, "Do I like horse meat? What do I think about it? I'm indifferent to horse meat. Like I'm sure it's good. I've had it in France. I'm sure, but I like haven't really had enough of it to form like a strong opinion. And you know, it's just a horse. I'd eat a horse. Like there's no meat that really I wouldn't get down on until you start getting into like rodents and shit like that, and then." So Wikipedia says that a concert is a live music performance in front of an audience. Maybe a single musician, which is sometimes called a recital by a musical ensemble, such as an orchestra, choir, or band. Arena concerts, amphitheater concerts. Informal names are show and gig. Musicians usually perform on a stage. Okay, cool. Anime porn on the bookmarks. Is there? Let me see. This is these are. I'm not even sure that these are my bookmarks. To tell you, it looks like they might be. Beeple, third edition, Ambient Space, Mad Cats. This is old shit. Kozer Circus. Yeah, these are bookmarks that just been following me around. I don't see any anime porno on there. There's a question about an issue with an Exchange server that I fixed like literally fucking decades ago. It was like back in like 2005. I was trying to fix that fucking Exchange server, but the bookmark is still there. I think what it wound up being was an issue with an NTP server. Like the just time kept fucking drifting off on these machines. So there you have it. Well, it looks like Astro got unbanned from the chat. He was saying, I thought you were going to lose your streak there, but I would never lose the streak. All right, let's begin, shall we? I apologize in advance for my voice sounding a little bit rough. I do like that when I'm sick, I get way more gravelly and deep. Like I'm looking forward to being an old fucking man and sounding like this all the time. Like, hey there, young man. Look into my eyes. See me right here? See this fucking gun? Get the fuck off of the elderly seat. Click, clack. You know what I'm saying? We were talking a little bit about gun realism in stories the other day. And Trailer Park Car Boys comes up where Ricky racks the slide before they're performing a robbery. And later on, he racks it again to look cool, and the bullet goes flying out. I was like, oh, fucking ingenious. No, I don't smoke. What am I? Yeah, I don't smoke. And I'm too old. Way too fucking old. I'm too old for this shit. All right, so this is chapter 82. And I do agree that we should... after this edit. Yeah, because the Starball is doing some wild shit right at this time, right? So she gets the text from Dan. Let me look back a tiny bit. So this was a confrontation scene with her mother where she revealed what she knows about the Starball. Which is all pretty wild. And she has this paranoid moment where she feels like she's being watched by Malcolm Lewis, the stalker. So chapter 82. It felt like aphelion. Outside Freya's bedroom window, the sun was caught behind a veil of clouds that leached all the color from the world. Dawn broke and the bare limbs of the skeleton trees shone silver, then faded to gray. It was hard to find the energy to move out of bed, and for a few minutes she watched the pale green shadows of Yggdrasil climbing up the wall. Checking the time, Freya found she had woken too early. Dan wouldn't be here. Checking the time, Freya found she had woken too early. Dan wouldn't be here for 57 minutes. Idly, she wished she could just blink and she wished she could blink and make an hour disappear. It was a superpower she'd wished for again and again at Grayson. Oh, so I think she has the same thought. Let's go. We got to go back to chapter 1 because I think we use that exact same thought when she's like lying on the ground at Grayson. All right, Command Shift G. Yep, exactly. Could she blink her whole life away? All All right, so let's go back to. So there, like we have like the same thought, right? Because like when I'm trying to be creative, sometimes I am not as creative as I would like to be. But that's okay because not much of a monologue this morning. Yeah, well, I'm sick. Like I'm gonna try and get this done. I'm not even sure that I can make it in. I think I have to go to work today, but I'm gonna leave early. Oh, because Lord, I do not feel one hundo. Dimly she remembered she'd been thinking the same thing when this all began, sitting outside the cafeteria a lifetime ago. See that right there? We just turned a fucking terrible repetition of a gimmick into a callback. Just like that, just by remembering that I had done this nonsense. What if she could? Freya imagined her eyelids fluttering as fast as they could go. She had a maximum of what, 50 more years? She began to throw off the sluggish thoughts of sleep as she calculated. 24 hours a day, 60 minutes an hour, 438,000 hours of being alive left. Even if she blinked 100 times a minute, 40 hours a week, it would take months to finish the job. It was just so much time to endure, and she was awful for not appreciating it when better people didn't get the chance. Freya dragged herself out of bed on the strength of the thought. She remembered the waltzes and their gaius, the awful Atlassian weight they expected Freya and Dan to shoulder. So I think Atlassian has two S's. Or is it even a word? So Atlassian are the people that make fucking Jira. Fuck you guys for making Jira. Fuck it. Wait, actually, hold on. Let me just take a second here. I'd like to quickly say fuck you to Asana, to Salesforce, to Basecamp, to HubSpot. Fuck you Zendesk. Fuck you Blue Service. Fuck you Remedy. All you guys, suck my ever-loving dick. Your software is trash. Everything on the fucking market, garbage. Every single time that I have to enter a fucking ticket or whatever, fuck you. And I just want, and if you work on that software, you're part of the fucking problem. Pro tip, you might go right to an easy definition answer. All right, let's try that. Yeah, I think it's not actually a word. God damn it. This fucking bullshit. I can never spell this right. Wiktionary. Yeah, it's the extra I that I keep putting in there. Yeah, it's not a fucking word. They just made this shit up. Yeah, there's no auto answer. There's no dictionary word for it there. Uh, Atlantean. Is that fucking Atlantis? All right, so I just want to start off with Jira here. First off, like Fahrenheit 451 has always been a good book. Like every bit of Ray Bradbury's output is a fucking national treasure. Um, Freya threw her head back and closed her eyes. She visualized him, mid-30s, not true, lesbian hair, still thinking Fahrenheit 451 was a good book. He reeked of coffee, and he was standing there in the shower, thinking about her while jerking off. No, Jira's garbage. The software, fuck that. Like Jura, which is how your name would be pronounced, is fine. But yeah, I just don't think it's a word stratum. I don't think we can get away with it. But yeah, I can honestly say I have never yanked it to this book, which is probably a good idea that our sex scenes are not so good. But also, I mean, the book is about essentially, to like my eye, these are children, they're like 15, 16, and so forth. They're just kind of outside the range of what like I consider inbounds for me to masturbate to. Just putting it out there. It's too fucking young. Like when I think about these people, I think about like fucking zits and awkwardness and cringy fucking meme music and no self-confidence or whatever, and just all the like blushing self-importance. Like, yeah, that's not attractive to yours truly. Yeah, like the women that I go for are like very self-possessed for the most part. Oh. Yeah, like if anything, the book is written more of a critique of my own mind state than like any one woman that I've ever gone out with. Like this character is not patterned after any women that I've ever dated. But I did wind up dating a woman for a while who was like, Jesus Christ, like this book is like, it's as if you're writing my life, because there were so many parallels between things that she had done and so forth. And shouts to her. She was quite crazy, but also like a interesting, like a good person in her way, but also a terrible person in her way. Uh, At Atlantean. Let's take a look. Oh God, I can't even spell it right. Huh. Oh yeah, so that actually works. Well, let's take a look at how that tracks within there, because I don't like where the awful Atlantean burden. Atlantean. I have no idea how to pronounce that. You remember the waltzes and their gaius, the awful Atlantean burden they expected Freya and Dan to shoulder. All right, yeah, I like that. Good work there, fucking Stratum. That's amazing. Yeah, I had almost given up on doing. So, the real question is like, what percentage of our readers will have to like click on that word on their fucking, the like on the word to get it to define. Let's how popular is this word? Of pertaining to Atlas or Atlantis. Huh, I wonder if there's a connection between the two. What's kind of cool about using this word here where a reader can interpret it as either Atlas or Atlantis. Both fucking work in the context of the sentence there, because remember their like thing is like, by the way, the Earth's gonna flood. You know what I'm saying? So that's actually really cool. I'm jazzed about it. Yeah, that's a really like an interesting fucking dichotomy right there. Yeah, yeah, it absolutely works. I liked it. Freya shrugged. Freya shrugged and went to the kitchen to fetch a pot of water. Yggdrasil was thirsty, and it was up to her. There was no there was no Havelgrimr in her bedroom, so Havelgrimr, uh, Hever is the spring that feeds Yggdrasil in Norse mythology. Oh, so this is a new coffee that I made. This is the first, the dregs of the batch here that was still in the flask when I made it here. So this is the first one that we've made with espresso beans, and I have to say, it feels like it's quite strong. The blend came out pretty smooth. We have one more bag of beans that we're going to try out from this brewer. I only got 2 liters of yield from this one, which was kind of weird to me. Like 2 liters of yield seems like kind of low. But part of it being 2 liters is it's much more concentrated. So yeah, I just got to be a little careful drinking this. It might be like super powerful. Hold on, like while we're here. Yeah, what makes espresso beans different? Because it goes stale or whatever. Yeah, so coffee does go, it loses like some flavor over time. But I drink it quickly enough. The type of beans are important. Well, this is an awful fucking article here. Look at this garbage. Here. So this one says that there's no fucking difference. Coffee bean is a coffee bean. Brew method. So it's nothing but a recommendation from the brewer. So they don't do anything fucking different. Huh. So apparently, like pressurizing the steam going through it makes the flavor profile more intense. So they're supposed to be brew method that they believe will make the flavor profile shine. That's super interesting there. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm like glad to get that info into my life. Does it go stale or whatever from sitting around while it takes to drink 2 liters? So far, I've actually found that at the rate that I drink 2 liters of coffee, which is about, it takes about a week to drink 2 liters of coffee. By the time I'm getting to the end of a batch, it's actually started to decant a little bit, and the flavor has improved slightly through oxidation. But I'm like one of those people who will straight up like, I like cold coffee like the next day that's been sitting out. So I may not be a good candidate, but one of the things that I'm doing is like right after I brew, I'm bottling it to reduce the amount of oxygen that is getting exposed to it. But yeah, like it's definitely sitting out for like it's a 12-hour brew cycle. So at the end of it, you know, it's had significant time to interact with oxygen. And the water starts off iced at the beginning of the cycle, but you know, throughout the cycle, all the ice is worn off and so forth. I'm actually getting like I have some fancy ice trays at work where they have like a little silicone bottle or bottom to the cubes with lids on them, so that because I was just seeing like flakes of bullshit that had drifted off of the top of the fridge or whatever. Like it's just like my old trays were like crusty and whatever, so I'm getting into it. But yeah, this is how I do anything. Like I'll start doing a project and I'll be like, well, what if I made this change? And like kind of obsessive with everything. And I think as we're sitting here, you know, like at page 650 or whatever like that of this novel that probably could have been like, we probably could have told this story in like 100 pages. We really have to like meditate on that obsessiveness and what it's done to my goddamn life. But here we are. When she turned off the tap, the air in the house was too still. Lasso was gone, the driveway was empty, but the rifle remained, resting in the corner. Very good rifle, Freya said, mimicking her mother's accent to break up the emptiness in the air. She wondered if she ought to put it in a closet so Dan didn't get freaked out, but then she wondered why she was even considering that. But then she realized it was a stupid thought. There was no hiding anything from Dan. They would be one again. Unity was all she could think about as she watered her tree. Was all Freya could think about. Afterward, she turned the taps of the shower until it was nearly scalding. Her skin absorbed the heat, piping it to glowing thoughts in her mind, Dan's mouth on her neck, his hand running across her breast, slipping down her stomach. Her own hand followed the imaginary line, and she was, Her hand followed the imaginary one, and she could feel she was slick, wetter than the water. She had to stop herself from going further. He would be here soon. After she pried herself out of the shower and got dressed, Freya still had 20 minutes to wait. She looked at her guitar case. Her fingers were aching to play, but she didn't have enough time for real practice, and she was too anxious. 10 minutes before Dan had promised to arrive, she put on her coat and stood outside. The morning was stunningly cold, but she didn't care. She wanted to see him the moment he arrived. If it wasn't a crazy thing to do, she would have climbed down to the road and started trudging through the piled-up snow to see him sooner. Dan arrived 5 minutes early, bounding out of the car with a puppy's eagerness. Freya dashed up to him, and they crashed together like two waves, each driving the other higher. He lifted her off the ground, and she laughed, overjoyed. Dan lifted her off the ground, and she laughed, overjoyed. When her feet touched the ground again, she pressed her cheek against his chest, feeling whole for the first time that morning. All morning. He was water to her. She'd been parched by his absence. With her eyes shut tight, she tried to remember every detail of this feeling. She wanted to give it to him later. Feels like a year, Dan said, and she nodded in agreement. Come inside, Freya asked, and his eyes flicked back to the car as if he wasn't sure it was a good idea, but he couldn't resist her. In a blur of kisses and discarded clothes, they made their way through the house to her bedroom. It was all so urgent, and as he was trying to slow down, she had her hands on his hips, moving him faster. She pulled him down and clenched him tight until his entire weight was pressing her against the bread. Pressing her against the bread. Jesus. She pulled him down and clenched him tightly until his entire weight was pressing her against the bed. His breathing was ragged. She knew he was almost there. Come inside, she asked again, and he did at once. His orgasm set hers off. Seeing she could barely breathe, he started to lift off of her, but she held him in place. But she pulled him back. Stay there, she said. Freya said, and she felt him twitch inside of her at the words. Sorry, that was so fast. I couldn't stop, Dan apologized. That was exactly what I wanted. Just stay inside me. You feel perfect. His face hung over her, adoring her. Yeah, Freya? And I gave her 1,000 tiny kisses along the ridge of her eyebrows, the tip of her nose, and the line of her jaw. For a moment, he drew back and stared into her eyes, burning with want, and she could feel him getting hard again inside of her. They made love a second time without ever slipping apart. Okay. Let's fuck before school or whatever. Nice. His mouth was locked on hers as they cried out together. There we go. So yeah, achievement unlocked. Have an orgasm while not under the control of an alien mind control orb. Good job. Did you like Dan asked afterward? It looks a little weird having like an ellipses and then a question mark. Okay, that looks a little better. I came too hard the first time to get off again. It's okay. It still felt amazing for me. She saw doubt on his face, and when she ran a hand along his cheek. He was so no. He was so new at this, so vulnerable. You'll feel it when we're together again, she reassured him. I love you, Dan said, and Freya said it back. She was beaming She was smiling so hard her jaw muscles ached. That was so good, Dan said. It was almost, he swallowed the sentence. It wasn't something he should say. Almost as good as Unity, Freya finished for him. Both her eyes shot to her jeans. The starball was in her pocket. Soon, she said, hoping it was true. Too soon, they untangled and began to dress again. Dan watched her from the bed. His eyes ran over her legs and lingered between them as she wiped herself off with a tissue. We can take a shower if you want, he offered, and she was about to agree before she stopped herself. I want to feel you inside of me all day, she said, patting herself. He shivered. The words turned a key in him, and Freya smiled down at him. He was sitting on the side of the bed. She ran her eyes over him. Uh, when she knelt, he could tell what she intended. Freya will be so late, Dan protested. There was something in his voice that told her she could insist and he would go along with whatever she wanted. She smiled back at him. Just knowing that she could was enough. So yeah, like I worried like at first that this would feel a little gratuitous because there's like so much sex in the chapters beforehand, but this is like a much more like comfortable exchange, and it really lends. Like, this is just like ordinary sex, and it really lends some stark contrast to like those crazy scenes that we were having before. Um, and yeah, like I like just like ordinary break. It doesn't feel too exploitive. Um, it feels true within the context of the story to me. But so let me see. So Stratum says that this is so much different. In other chapters, I felt that they should be more like this. So this is how like an ordinary sex scene in a story is written, right? You don't go into like huge detail. You have like a few high notes that you point, and then you move on to like the talking and people's emotions and so forth, right? It's not like that laser focus that we have in some of the other scenes where everything is like elevated to the super high level of like blinding intensity, right? Where it's just like way too like, why are we going so in depth? Um, uh, so Stratum says, I think if you must have this, it should be like this after the first time or two, as we already understand the depth and detail of their connection. I think we're through with like all the like really elaborate and exaggerated like mind fucking or whatever thing there, and it's just interesting to have like this. You could find these sex scenes in like any fucking thriller, right? There's nothing super special about this. I think they're poignant and they show like the characters care about each other, um, but there's nothing like there's nothing soul wrenching about them and everything. And really, like if we scroll back to the other things that have happened um, from their first encounter, where like they don't even touch each other, all the way down to like the super intense like losing virginity scene and everything, it may work out. I think a lot of people are going to be uncomfortable with the sex scenes in this book, and I think it's one of the first places where an editor will sort of dig their heels in and be like, "Hey, man, this is too much. You can't get away with this." Um, but I don't think it's my job at this point to change those. It's my job to make something that's kind of like honest to the view, the like what I'm trying to portray, and I like where we're at so far. But this is not like just contrast like the look on my face as we're like working through this to like the agony that it was editing those other scenes where it's just like, what the fuck are we doing? because part of like trying to like venture into that like new and weird territory is it's pretty fucking cringe. You know what I mean? It's like um, it's not effortless in the same way, um, and like yeah, when you're staking out something new, you always alienate people who are not on board to take like that weird leap. And scenes like that are written not for the vast majority of people who will read something, but for like the one or two people out of 100 or something where they see something like that and they say, "That's what I've always wanted to read," and you'll be fucking surprised by just who picks up on the thing that's most important to you in a story where I've always wanted to read that particular thing, or I'd always imagined something like that, and like you made it happen. And it's just weird. Like from a broad enough scope of readers, you can get almost every imaginable response out of something. And I mean, the success of a book is just like what most people think about it there. But I don't want to put out something easy. Like if every sex scene in the book was written the way that this was, um, like why would we even bother to have our science fiction subplot? You know, why? Like this could just be, we could take all the Starball shit out and it'd just be like a regular story. Um, because like all the work that we did in the first 70 chapters of this book was so that I could have those scenes in chapters 70 through 80. Because like that was the original idea that I really wanted to get across. And actually, my original idea was like much darker and much much worse. Like keep in mind that this is like where I've settled in what I think is acceptable, because the initial concept for the book was like way worse. All right, what do we have here? So Stardom says, one of my favorite parts of 1984 is when they rent the room above the shop to fuck in, less so for the sex, but in part because it's about going somewhere where you're not seen alone. Love that. Yeah, it's a pretty solid one. Fucking Julia. Why'd you have to get him up? But of course, I love Big Brother. Freya relented. Freya relented, and they managed to get dressed without tumbling back into bed. On their way to the car, Dan stopped abruptly, staring at the rifle in the corner. "Whoa," he said. "What's that all about?" "Lassa doesn't do anything halfway," Freya said, shaking her head. Freya explained, shaking her head. "That's insane." Dan's expression was clouded. He stared at the Seiko through narrowed eyes with his head leaned back like it was a serpent. "So was Malcolm," Freya countered. "Jesus," Dan said, shaken. Dan was shaken. "Maybe we really should leave town." Freya leapt at the suggestion. "Oh, we don't need that," she leapt at the suggestion. "We should. We totally should. Malcolm threatened you, too. We can get a leave of absence or something. I can talk to Mr. Evers about it. It doesn't have to be Paris. We can go to New York." Freya leapt at his suggestion. "No, yeah, we don't need that." So what's this? The Freya leapt at his suggestion. Freya leapt at his suggestion. Yeah. So I want to have something like Freya said or something like that to break up between those two paragraphs while we're talking about it. God, now all I can think about is like that scene in 1984. Oh, Victory Gin. The scene that I really remembered from 1984 was the scene where the protagonist picks up a prostitute and he realizes that she's just very old and is wearing a ton of makeup and just has a sad look in her eyes. And he's just like, "Yeah, you know what, fuck it." And he just goes for it anyway. And just that sort of resigned sense of, well, I guess this is how things are going to be and everything. I related to, yeah, I remember. I can picture all that that blush and that smeared eyeshadow and that eyeliner and everything, and the sort of crow's feet around the eyes, covered by like caked on makeup. Yeah, I've seen that one. I've seen this play before. So it doesn't have to be Freya said to break it up, and could be a reference to noises or looking at something in the room. This is true. Um, hmm. I want to. I kind of want to say that she's like doing triplets here, but I wonder what that would be. Like the right way to. Mm-hmm. Freya, patter of rapid notes. So I wanna think about what would happen to this book if we just took out all the descriptions of characters breathing, right? Because there's a lot of sighing and well, I wonder. I think we lose like almost 10 pages of just taking out all the lines where it's talking about somebody breathing. Oh. Freya's excitement rose as she spoke. Freya's excitement rose as she spoke. My mom was so upset with me. I don't know how I get her to agree. I really wish I'd introduced you to her sooner. She's going to be so predisposed against you. The thought was like a yawning pit. Freya hadn't even thought of that. But of course, she would have to meet Dan's mother, who now thought she was hell-bent on ruining her son's life. Freya hadn't even considered the meeting yet. The thought was like a yawning pit. Freya hadn't even considered the problem of Samantha Gregulus yet. Of course she would have to meet Dan's mother, who now thought she was hell-bent. Of course she would have to meet Dan's mother, who now thought Freya was hell-bent on ruining her son's life. Freya shut her eyes and covered them with her hand. Staying the extra day had been such a mistake. Da 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 da. She felt Dan's hand on her shoulder. It's not that big a deal. I told her it was my idea. She's mad now, but she'll get it. It's not that big a deal. I told her it was my idea. She's mad now, but she'll get over it. I thought you didn't lie to her, ever, Freya questioned. I mean, it was ultimately my decision. I wanted to. I leaned on you pretty hard. I'm sorry. Dan had been half joking, but his face grew serious. And his expression reminded Freya that he was 2 years older than her. Freya, that was the greatest experience of my life. I'll never regret it. Last weekend was the greatest experience of my life. I'll never regret it. I love you, she said. They felt like magic words that could fix anything. In the driveway, the Toyota had been idling diligently the whole time they were screwing. When they climbed in, Dan had to turn down the heat. They were still hot from exertion. So, in the driveway, the Toyota had been idling diligently the whole time they were screwing. They were still hot from... Their bodies were still running hot from exertion. They buckled in, and Dan took it very slowly down the driveway. He was afraid they might slide into the street. Yeah, imagine if the story just ends there. The car just slides into the fucking street and they get T-boned at the end. What if? No. So as we're going through, post chapter 82, any plot point is open. Is open for grabs, right? Like anything that happens in the plot from this point, I'm not wedded to, right? I'm not 100% on our conclusion or any of the events that transpire. Everything leading up to this chapter, I'm certain of. Like everything that has happened so far, I want to have it in the story. And there are just a few places where I might trim a chapter or whatever. But as of this point, right here, day 64, now that we've gotten through one, what it's like some byte unit, or now that we're like 64-bit writing, everything that happens from this point can change. And it's a spot where definitely I'm very interested to anybody who's still paying attention to the story, who's familiar with it and so forth. I'm very interested in your thoughts about it because I think our conclusion is going to put a lot of people off, a tremendous number of people. And I think there are things that we've done that we haven't necessarily earned. So I want to either get to where we're earning them or consider an alternate conclusion. So yeah, this is the choose your own adventure segment of this particular journey. Is there something nice I could do for your mom as an apology? Oh. Is there something nice I could do for your mom? Like, do you know what? Is there something nice I could do for your mom? Do you know what flower she likes? Freya asked, trying to solve the problem. Black-eyed Susan's, Dan said, but she hates it when people spend money on her. She doesn't like cut flowers. So black-eyed Susans were actually the favorite flower of a girl that I was dating at this time, who we wound up breaking up last year. Like right, let me see, not long before I met the girl that I'm dating right now. But she was like a really cool girl. She was like a photographer and was like well accomplished and was into rock climbing. And the muscles of her upper body, like her shoulders and back and everything, were really impressive. Yeah, I have some good memories of that relationship. She's a cool person, and I wish her well. But black-eyed Susans, Dan said, but she hates it when people spend money on her, and she doesn't like cut flowers. Okay, cool. So, but she hates it when people spend money on her. Okay, cool. I could give her a sprig of Yggdrasil, Freya said, not being serious. And soon she wished she'd kept her mouth shut. She had to explain it was the name of her tree and then the myth behind it. It left her feeling simultaneously like an incredible nerd and a little outraged she had to explain all of this to Dan. How could he not know? She set her palm over the star ball in her pocket, wishing in vain for unity. What if I made her some cookies? I bet she'd really like that. She's allergic to chocolate, though. Oh, God. This is so hard to pronounce. I could make her Jewel Tortu. Jewel Tortu. I think it's Jewel Tortu. All right, we're. Yeah, so
Joulutorttu.
Joultortu. I can make her Joultortu, Freya said, suddenly excited. They're finished Christmas tarts. It doesn't have that salty licorice in it, does it? Dan made a face. No. Oh, God, no. No, you make it with prune jam traditionally, but I would make it with raspberry. It's a ricotta pastry crust with lemon zest. You make them in the shape of a windmill. They're like the only Christmas thing my mom likes to do. That's a great idea. I'll totally help make them if we can find. Okay. No, you make it with prune jam traditionally, but I'd probably. Let's take that out. It's a ricotta pastry crust with lemon zest. You make them in the shape of a windmill. They're like the only Christmas thing my mom likes to do. That's a great idea. I'll totally help you bake them. If we can find blackcurrant jam, that's her favorite. I love blackcurrant. Every time I'm in the UK, I get ribena. They're my favorite kind of wine gums, too. I don't know why they're not popular and more popular. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, let's take that out. Fuck ribena. They're my favorite kind of wine gums. I fucking love those wine gums. Those are my favorite kind of wine gums, by the way. Hell yeah. I love blackcurrant. They're my favorite kind of wine gums. I don't know why it's not more popular in the States. I don't know why they're not more popular in the States. Europeans love them. They were illegal to grow for a long time. There was some fungus they were afraid trees would get. I think my mom has told me that about 10 times, Dan said, and his eyes rolled for a split second and then shot back to the road. Anyhow, that's such a good idea. Want to do that tonight? Can we run first? Absolutely. Can we go for a run first? Yeah, that sounds like a good night. Run, make curry, make cookies, make up with my mom, make love, Freya added. You're insatiable, he said, with a little smile at the corner of his mouth. I want you, she said. The whole you, she asserted. She meant unity. No, we don't. I hope so, he said. And there was a needful edge in his voice that hung heavy in the car. For a moment, there was only the sound of the engine as they climbed the hill to Grayson. They would have to part soon. She meant to have more time for this. Freya had meant to have more time for them to talk. She hadn't expected to drag Dan back into her lair like that. Suddenly, she realized that she had completely forgotten that she and Lassa were going to investigate the Starball after school. Her stomach twisted. This was exactly what kept happening before she first had taken. Okay, so her stomach twisted. This was exactly what had kept happening before she. Okay, so there's that. And then the other thing is that we have to go back to the previous chapter. I'm so glad I remembered this. Okay. Using an X-ray next. Okay, cool. So, God, that's a long ass chapter with Lassa. What? What? Is that the? Oh, we're matching case. That's why. So, oh, actually, uh, so all Unity should be capitalized. Cool. So let's go back to Command Shift G, page number 630. Okay, so what I'm looking for is the point where here. And we need to take off mask. There we go. But I want to take off match case because we seldom want to do that there. Someone should print a book with the green and red squiggly correction lines still in it. Oh God, we yeah, in 2029, the UK doesn't exist anymore. It's just a loose confederation of Islamic states. Oh yeah, and that let's find Frey afterwards. So I got to remember that. Yeah, I was actually in the Strand last night, just kind of like browsing around, and one of the books that I picked up was House of Leaves, and it's I didn't realize, but it was like this whole Pynchon-esque crazy fucking thing happening there. But yeah, I was like browsing through it, and like the text is all over the fucking page and everything. And I like realized they made a movie of it, and like I would never buy that book to like fuck around in it or whatever, but it appeals to somebody. Okay, cool. So towards the end of this thing, mm, of that's a good note. Like at the end of this, we should just do like whole document searches for every misspelling of like Malcolm, every like uncapitalized Freya. Um, we could probably do a bunch of those right now. Let me finish editing this point, and then we could probably hit a bunch of those like right off the bat. Um, Let's see. But Lassa was yawning and waving her away. She'd hit her limit. We'll talk more tomorrow. I think I'm finished. We'll talk more tomorrow, Lassa promised, rising slowly and moving. Okay, cool. So, yeah, as I was looking back over the conversation, I was like, we have this big reveal, and it's really, really weird that she doesn't, in that big reveal, ever, like, oh, by the way, I have telepathic powers. It seems like the kind of shit that you would tell somebody. Just really and truly there. Oh, cool. Let me see. Is that the real Vapor? Huh. Well, I see Vapor is IP address. Yeah, like, I'll have to see if that's the real Vapor. Yeah, he doesn't seem to be identified. Oh, he's logged in as a Vapor. I'll get him to confirm it independently. Sorry, it's just somebody needed a hand from me. Okay, cool. So we did that change there. Yeah, because it was gonna be a problem later that she didn't. Ooh, and we need to put a note in the next chapter. She wakes up, but Lassa's already gone. Yeah, there we go. Lassa was already gone. There we go. Cool. So I like knowing. All right, so let's look for. Replace. Oh, we need that space. So Frey, and then we'll replace with Frey. Okay. Yeah, that's a bunch of these. Okay, cool. So let's look for how many. So about 4 different places in this book we had fucked that up. Oh, the case matters. Oh, cool. Yeah, the only places where we fucked up the capitalization is really early in the like those are notes at the very end of the book right there. So that's good. So about 4 different places we had called Freya Frey. Okay, so we decided that we had an M, the L in Malcolm, so that's fixed there. What other? There are 84 lowercase Dans. Oh, we can do it with a space in front of it. Oh yeah, we can't do a find and replace for that. That's not acceptable. Okay, cool. But Dan looked uncertain. Cool. I like all of that. Space Dan space. Yeah, let's try that. 647 is where we're at. No, there's no. We never fuck up and do Dan. Not any. Not anywhere in the entire book. Wow, I can't believe I pulled that one off. What about Lhasa? Not found. Oh, look, there's all of our spaces in the book. Wait. Ooh, all of the double spaces should be single spaces, honestly. Oh, although not the ones in. Okay, cool. That's one of those typesetting things. You'll look for double spaces, and then you'll take a look for any comma period, because those are common errors right there that pop up from time to time. But let's try to finish through this chapter. Yeah, I'm feeling way better with a little of this coffee. I mean, it really is quite strong. Freya had meant to have more time for them to talk. She hadn't expected to she hadn't expected to drag Dan back into her lair like that. I really like this sentence. She hadn't planned to drag Dan back into her lair. So it's a clunky sentence, but it's a great concept. Freya had meant for them to have more time to talk. Dragging Dan back to her lair had been unplanned. Speaking of mothers, Freya said, and she stopped. That was how Lhasa talked, the unnatural feeling use of segue to guide a conversation. Focused on finding a parking space, Dan didn't seem to notice her conflict. Yeah? He finally asked, as she was struggling to figure out how to say it. Wait, park first. Wow, okay. He found a space between two Jeeps. One had parked too close to the line and they were going to have to get out of her side. He found a space between two Jeeps. One had parked too close to the line and they were going to have to get out of her side. Jeep is capitalized. What is it? He asked, concerned. Killing the engine. Killing in the name of da-da-da-da. I meant to tell you this, but it got pushed out of my mind or I forgot. I don't know which. Lhasa knows. She got jabbed by the starball too. Oh shit, Dan said. Dan whispered. What? Whispered is wrong. Muttered. Let's see. It's thesaurus time here. Croak is wrong. Uh, yeah. None of these are quite what I want to get. Vaporized, steamed. Okay, well, I don't have a Oh shit. Under his breath. Yeah, that's kind of close. Oh shit, Dan said under his breath. He turned the key and killed the Toyota's engine. Oh, yeah. That's. What is it? Dan asked. He turned the key and killed the Toyota's engine. Is she okay? She took a CAT scan. There was a tiny speck in her brain. We probably have the same thing. That's how it's doing this, Freya said, waving her hand from her to him. Dan's face was growing pale. In her pocket, she held the star ball, expecting it to grow warm. When it did, she could see this change in Dan's expression. His mind was icing over. Working on you. What the fuck, he said, and the words slipped away into a hiss. I mean, we knew that, right? All the things it's doing. It makes sense that it needs to mess with our brains, right? I guess so. Did I not want to think about it, or would it not let me think about it? Dan was struggling to get his words out. I don't know. It just calmed you down, I could tell. I felt that. I was just, getting upset. I was, getting upset. What were you thinking about when it did it? That I want out. I don't, though, do I? Her mind flashed forward to the locker. Her mind flashed forward to the locker, and Freya felt the beginning of nausea, but it was just an inkling. She had no real intention of sealing the star ball away. She never even really considered it. Ooh, this is a weird. The pained look on Dan's face twisted in her worse than being starsick. She'd gotten him into this. Are we going to start hearing her thoughts too? Dan asked. I don't know. It'd be so weird. We're going to run some tests on the star ball. Try and figure it out some more. She might come try to pull me out of school, depending on how our meeting today goes. Can you text me if that's happening? I'll come too, Dan said. Okay, Freya nodded, feeling relieved at the thought of having him with her. Lasse might balk, but Freya would demand it. She stared at his face, wishing they were united. Beneath the apprehension, she could still perceive Dan's interest. Beneath his apprehension, she could tell he was curious about this. When Freya looked at Dan, she could read his expression in layers, the thoughts behind his thoughts. Flickers of the way he thought about Lassa, the suspicious feeling that what they had need to be guarded, the greedy desire for more experiences, more sensations, more self. As she was reading him, as Freya was reading Dan, he was reading her right back. A whole silent conversation leaping between their faces. She saw him shut his eyes and knew he was checking for unity, as it wasn't there. This was something new. I didn't know we could do that, Dan said, as she nodded in agreement. Freya pointed a finger from herself to him and then closed it into a fist. He reached out and held her hand. Meaning they were one. He reached out and held her hand. We're getting closer, she said. Something is happening. The 5-minute bell rang as they were trying to get used to the strange feeling. They would both need to run to get to class on time. There's more I want to talk to you about, but don't text about it, okay? I haven't so far. Okay. I want to talk to you more about this, but let's not text about it, okay? Okay. Did anything else change? Lassa's talking with Heidenkernu today. Maybe somebody's listening. I don't know. It could all get pretty crazy. Whatever happens, I love you, Dan said, and Freya said it back. They squeezed their way through the narrow gap between the cars and ran to class. Magic words. So that is not actually chapter 80. We're up to like 84, I think. 83. So that's kind of cool. I like how that chapter went. Pretty happy. I love the idea of her dragging him back to her lair. That's dope. I'm a fan. Potential concept here. Oh, don't read that. Oh, cool. So we've already gotten through 12 pages today. I feel, what time is it here? Yeah, we've definitely got, we can do another chapter. Radomir, where were you guys? Dan, Paris, upside down smiley. So anywhere where I put 2 slashes, it's like a typesetting note. Yeah, so at the end of the whole thing, one of the fine replaces we'll do, well, not a fine replace, but just a fine that we'll do is anything with those 2 slashes. I treat it like a comment. The group chat was a buzz all through first period, but Freya could only feel the text buzzing against her thigh. Freya could feel the text buzzing against her thigh, but she couldn't check then.
She had to wait until she was in Mr. McCallahan's class to respond. Halfway through the period, Mr. McCallahan just sort of trailed off and asked them to read Chapter 9. Halfway through the period, Mr. McCallahan just sort of trailed off and asked them to read Chapter 9 in their textbook. One by one, phones began to emerge while Mr. McCallahan pretended to One by one, phones began to emerge while Mr. McCallahan pretended to read something on his desk, but his eyes never moved. He was staring through everything, gazing into the void. Freya knew exactly how he felt. For a while, she looked at him, wondering if maybe she ought to recommend Dr. Garbuglio to... For a while, she looked at... Freya knew exactly how he felt. For a while, she watched him suffer, wondering if maybe she ought to recommend Dr. Garbuglio. Maybe more than that. He'd been getting worse all semester. Maybe he needed to hold the star ball. Freya anticipated the feeling of aversion, but it didn't come. The starball had a good idea now of what she would and wouldn't do. Did it trust her now? It was maddening that the orb could facilitate the most beautiful, meaningful communication of her life. The orb that could facilitate the most beautiful, meaningful communication of her life had never said a thing to her. When she asked it for things, it was no better than praying. It might be no smarter than a toaster, just a machine that did exactly this and no more. She worried at the thought until she couldn't bear wondering what people were saying anymore. She took out her phone and read carefully through the back scroll. Dan hadn't even hinted that anything had gone down with them. She liked that. It was something just for them. She wondered if he'd told Cameron. Thinking about it, she definitely would have told Betty, and if it had been a year ago, probably Jane too. It dawned on her that Dan had likely told his mother, and her cheeks were suddenly aflame. Freya couldn't understand why she felt embarrassed that this woman she hadn't even met knew. She felt perfectly fine telling Lassa. Okay. It dawned on Freya. She'd heavily implied it to Lassa, and that hadn't bothered her at all. Everyone was getting exasperated with Dan's evasions, and she could tell he was enjoying it. She'd seen less of it this side of him since they'd gotten closer. The Harlequin was on hiatus. She remembered the way he'd made... she remembered... Freya remembered the way he'd made Claire cry at Brad's house. When the shine wore off, she suspected he would revert to being a little more of an asshole. She began typing into her phone. So dawn goes down to today. Nothing gold can stay. She reconsidered before sending it. She was struggling for an entry point in the conversation, and she was sure quoting Frost wasn't it. She felt like she needed to participate, though, or people would start to think she was upset. Sighing, she deleted her line. Freya, we went cross-country skiing. It was really fun. At once, the conversation turned into questions about snow and where everyone wanted to ski that winter. Everyone was pressing them for pictures and seemed surprised neither had taken any. That was another thing that she liked about Dan. He didn't stop every 5 seconds to post a picture of something. There was no lens standing between him and being alive. Freya could really do without seeing pictures of every single calorie Riley Halstead ate, and as much as she was warming up to Jeanette, Freya was already sick of seeing her dumb, smush-faced cat in awkward poses. She glanced up at the clock, just as the bell put second period out of its misery. No comment is needed there. Freya took a last look at Mr. McCallahan, telling her she would ask Dr. Garboglio what to do about him on Thursday. She added it to the list of things she wanted to talk about. It was still difficult to believe she was looking forward to talking with a psychiatrist. As she walked through the hall, someone called out her name. She wheeled around with her fist balled. Okay, so I'm putting a note here that we need to... Because I think he's second period, so I can't remember if she has 6 classes or 4. So I think it's like the first class is like that woman who revealed like what happened with Radomir, and then she has Mr. McCallahan's class, which I think is there's like one English class, and then I forget what the fuck Mr. McCallahan teaches. And then I think she has one more period before lunch and then 3 periods in the afternoon. But I can't exactly remember. I need a wiki. She still couldn't believe she was looking forward to talking with a psychiatrist. That's like an interesting point. So yeah, I feel like Garboglio doesn't quite get enough space within this book, and he's limited too. She can only see him on Thursdays, so it's not like sort of the same way that like your exposure to a psychiatrist is usually pretty limited within your life. What do we got? Oh, Chad with the face mask emojis. As Freya walked through the hall towards her next class, someone called out her name. She wheeled with her fist balled, remembering Jane chasing her down the hall. But it was Radomir. His face was considerably improved. It was Radomir. His face was in much better shape, and he had an urgent look. May I talk with you? May I talk with you? Radomir asked. Sure, you look so much better, Rad. You look so much better. Radomir ignored the compliment completely and leaned in close to her, speaking with his voice low. Men came to talk with my father. At first, he thought they were police asking about the coward, but he wanted to know about your mother. At first, he thought there were police asking about the coward, but they wanted to know about your mother. He told them nothing and asked that I warn you both. He thinks they were government men. Oh shit, Freya breathed. Did they say why? No, though it must be about Heidenkernu. They were very unhappy my father would not answer their questions. They tried to pressure him, and he laughed. He had to deal with the STB back when the Czech Republic was Czechoslovakia. These suits are clowns to him. Do you know what this might be about? Freya nodded. Do not tell me, Radomir cautioned her. I cannot tell what I do not know, but warn your mother, please, and let me know if you need my help. I will. Thank you, Rad. Freya reached out and put her hand on his shoulder and gave him a serious nod, which he returned. She gave him a serious nod, which he returned. She could remember him standing in the cafeteria with gross chunks of gelatin clinging to his neck. I saw nothing. You're a real friend, Radomir. Thank you. I'm sorry your dad got dragged into this. So this word here is Russian for not catastrophe. Not a catastrophe. Not a catastrophe, Radomir said, looking touched. I hope not, Freya replied. In her pocket, the starball was burning hot. So what do I say here? Oh, this is like from last July or what, this comment. I don't think it's really appropriate. So a bunch of that was like what the starball was using to communicate its messages, and it being kind of limited by fucking like her phone being turned off. All through third period and lunch, Freya grappled for what to do. She wanted to tell Dan about the new development, but he was strangely absent from the group chat, and she was afraid of texting him directly. She worried her line was being monitored. She felt certain her line was being monitored. There was every likelihood her phone was patient zero for the zero process. Oh, what's the name of this character? Let's go to... Yeah, fuck those people with their bullshit landing site. Now, what's the name for this? How do you pronounce this thing? The name of this letter is the same as the sound it represents. Mid-front rounded vowels. In some places it's used as a diphthong. It's a Scandinavian letter. Ooh. Ooey. Similar looking Cyrillic, whatever. Dulosil. Replacement for the symbol 0. I don't know how you pronounce Latin capital O with. I don't know how you pronounce it. Could they figure that out? Karhu had said the process vanished. Oh, so here we're going to do a find and replace. Okay, so we got matching case. Starball is always capitalized. That I'm aware of. All through third period and lunch, Freya grappled for what to do. She wanted to tell Dan there was every likelihood her phone was patient 0 for the O process. Could they figure that out? Karhu had said the process had vanished. Was that the Starball figuring out how to evade detection, or did it figure out what it needed and then terminate? Or did it already have the data it needed? Human serum albumin, cytomegalovirus, and that opioid milk peptide thing, it all added up to something, but she really needed Lassa to make an informed decision. She'd texted Lassa, "Call me," in all caps, planning to ask her to call from another phone or come to Grayson, but there had been no reply. Maybe they already had her. Maybe they were inside her house, wondering why there was a machine gun in their foyer and a pistol in the ottoman. When the call came to pull her out of Mr. Manzini's class, Freya wasn't surprised. Lynn Harris looked like she'd had just about enough of all of this. Her hair was a mess, and there were white streaks of antiperspirant in the armpits of her blouse. Her posture was stiff. She was angry, but her posture was stiff. She was angry, but unbroken. The meeting with Heidenkernu didn't go well, Lynn said, as if the words tasted sour in her mouth. Freya could tell right away Lassa had done something Lynn told her not to. What did she tell them? Freya asked. Nothing, and that's the problem. They brought in scientists for this meeting. Lassa couldn't adequately explain her unauthorized research. I had to give them a lot to keep them from pressing charges. We turned over Lassa's phone, her personal email accounts, everything. I'd warned her not to bring up the sleepwalking, but she got carried away talking with one of their scientists, and it slipped out. The Heidenkernu lawyer pounced on it. She's at Spring Harbor now. She'll be there for... under observation. She's at Spring Harbor now, under observation. Freya drew her head back from the sound. Freya drew her head back from the words. It was the same mental hospital she'd been afraid they'd lock her up in. Is she committed? Freya asked. It's voluntary. It's voluntary. I agreed to do it as part of the negotiation. From Heidenkernu's perspective, this is ideal. They don't want her vanishing again. Being able to claim she's mentally unwell gives them aegis if this blows up on them. This thing would be an issue for them if it became public. This thing would be a big issue for them if it became public. Radomir just warned me some men in suits were questioning his father about Lassa. Dymek thinks they're FBI. Lynn took a deep breath at the new development. I really, really hope that's not the case. It would mean Heidenkernu was lying to me about trying to keep this contained. Why would they get involved? I can only speculate. Maybe they think she's working for the Russians. She would never. She would never do that, Freya said immediately, and Lyd nodded.
Yeah, it turns out the whole thing was just a Russian plot to unbalance to keep Hillary Clinton from getting elected. That's what this whole Starball thing was about. Still with her, 2029. I can only speculate. Maybe they think she's working for the Russians. She would never do that, Freya said immediately, and Lynn nodded. Lassa wasn't shy with her opinions about Russia. Most likely they're private security hired by Heidenkernu. As soon as it became clear we were turning over Lassa's phone records and personal email accounts, Karhu disclosed his relationship with Lassa. He was trying to recuse himself, but I'm pretty sure he's going to have to resign. Did you know about that? Freya asked. No. Did you? Lynn's eyes were hard. Her voice was as bitter as aspirin. Lynn's eyes were hard. Her voice was as bitter as aspirin. Her voice as bitter as aspirin. What had she expected? She knew what Lassa was. I figured it out a few days ago when he came over to the house to check on the router. You could tell he'd been there before. I didn't know before that. Very sharp, Lynn said. Is there anything else you can tell me about what's going on? Freya froze up, unsure what it was wise to tell Lynn. I think she's just losing it. She'd been sleepwalking, and she said the ideas were coming to her out of nowhere, that she was afraid she'd had a stroke or something. I don't think she's involved in any kind of spying. When her internet went out, she was really trying to figure out the problem. She wouldn't cover up that way. She wouldn't need to lie about that with me, Freya said. Lynn nodded. That's helpful. Can I ask you about something? Is there anyone else? You knew about Paul, right? Lynn nodded. I didn't like him. I didn't either. I don't think Lassa even liked him. She's really cagey about everything. She didn't tell me about you two either. She's not trying. Oh my God, this coffee is so strong. Jesus, I'm like seeing through time and space. Wait, is that Hogwarts right there? Holy shit, yeah, that shirt. I'm envious. Yeah, we out here. Whew. Burn before reading. Hell yeah. Lynn drew back, holding her chin in her hand as she absorbed what Freya had said. Finally, she nodded. What about Malcolm Lewis? Freya asked. Yeah, where you been, Hogwarts? We ain't seen you in a long time. Right there. Hope you been well. I can't believe that we made it to like 650. I'm just accelerating this whole time. Really enjoying it.
Nothing new since he texted me the gun. Uh, Working had a fire at the building. I was not involved. Oh shit. Yeah, that's tough shit. Yeah, fires. Amazing. But also a pain in the ass if you're involved in like IT or maintenance or anything like that. So here, completely rewrite that character as a smart person, which we try to do. He's worthless as a dunce. The fact that they haven't picked him up yet means he probably left town. Freya realized in that moment that all this time she'd been expecting Lassa to take care of the Malcolm situation. When she imagined herself holding the rifle or staging the ambush, it wasn't real. At the back of her mind, this had always been a problem Lassa would solve. Violence was her domain. Now Freya was on her own. If anyone comes to talk with you, say nothing and call me, okay? Don't talk to them without me present. I know, Freya said. It was the wrong thing to say. Lynn's eyes were suddenly blazing. I just need to reiterate it because it's absolutely critical. Say nothing. I said I won't, Freya said, her posture straightening as she stared back. Lynn looked surprised, like a pawn had just stepped sideways. She expected Freya to fold under any pressure, but Freya wasn't intimidated by Lynn. She knew the intensity behind Lynn's voice was fear. She was in trouble too if this all came unraveled. At last, Lynn ran her hand from her forehead to the back of her scalp, as if she were trying to sweep all the tension behind her. She looked exhausted and the day was barely halfway through. Are you at OK home alone? I could stay over if you're worried. Freya was surprised by the offer. She didn't expect Lynn to worry about her like that. She caught... It was a weird stepmothery vibe. Oh, God. Someone with a gun is threatening to kill you, she reminded herself. It was normal for anyone to be concerned. That's okay, but thank you. I'll have somebody with me, Freya said. She could tell Lynn thought otherwise, but she didn't insist. They parted with an uneasiness between them, and Freya got a note from the office so she wouldn't get in trouble for being late for fifth period. The next 2 periods felt like 2 years. Look at that. We're 20 pages ahead of schedule. Oh, this is a cool chapter next. I think we're talking about some kind of fucking genocide. Cool. All right, well, that's cool. Like, things are starting to heat up. I wonder what's going to happen with all this federal attention. Suddenly, our story is crawling with the Bureau. Okay, well, I'm too sick to do another chapter, and it's getting late in the day. Oh my God. I think I need to dilute that coffee or something like that. It is kicking my fucking ass right here. It's about, I want to say twice as strong as the coffee that we had before. Yeah, that's wild. MTW shows up. He's the one that's snitching on the whole time, like Malcolm T. Wiener. Nice progress. I need to catch up. Yeah, we're at page 660. I thought that we would get to 150. I just really, yeah, I feel like we're in stride right here. So, Spathy, while as you're catching up, and I want to tell everybody who's out here, this is the point of the story from about page 630 onward. So the last 170 or so pages of this book, nothing is set in stone, and everything about the ending can change, right? So one thing, and the things that I'm concerned about here are, one, that we sort of haven't developed this external authority thread enough. We could potentially swap the involvement of the FBI into local authorities. Originally, it was like the CIA, but I thought that was a little bit much, so I'm taking them the fuck out of there. Maybe. We'll see what we do. So that is something that is open to discussion. Whether or not we have developed the Malcolm thread enough, I still don't think that we have done enough to justify him as like a weird threat, right? To my mind, he seems like oh well, there's this thing in the background, but we'll just kind of ignore it. You know what I mean? Which is I don't think that he weighs heavily enough on her. But throughout this, we've tried to add like several more places where she's like thinking about it, like that scene in the parking lot where she's like looking around, or that moment where she is certain that he's like in there watching her. So we've done those. I like where we're at with the relationship with the mother. But one thing that we might consider changing right here is so we in this chapter we knock Lassa out of the story. We take her out of the story as a factor, right? Potentially we should not do that, and we should just make this much more of an arc with Freya and her mother. So that's one possibility that I'm considering right here, because a lot of that character is just like the mother being absent, right? She just vanishes off of the scene. She like goes off into the wilderness and vanishes again, where she's considering killing herself. And here she just gets plucked away to this mental hospital, right? So it's not quite like fridging the character, but potentially we could be using her to make like a larger impact on her. Oh my God, I'm seeing double at the moment. What the fuck? I hope that's not just the coffee, because I am in for a rough 4 or 5 hours here. So yeah, if Malcolm is amounting to, I will tell you, like, beforehand, the Malcolm thread is resolved. Like we're not going to worry that we have built up the thread of Malcolm too much and that nothing happens without spoiling anything. Like he gets resolution to his arc there. My worry is that we built him up too little for the outcome that he has on the story. And that he's not really a villain that we can relate to in any way, shape, or form. And Freya's had like a mental realization that like, hey, part of this shit is on me, like me just being shitty to people. The Malcolm character is not meant to be a sympathetic character, especially because he's doing like all this weird stalkery shit and so forth. But at this point, I'm not sure that he's a realistic character either. And he's one of the places where we may have to go back. Keep in mind that this is our first edit of the story. Typically, a book will get about 7 different edits. And if we float this to a publisher, the odds of them taking issue with some of the shit in this book are quite high. And probably they will want to make some changes. And we've got all the room in the world to maneuver. Like there's no rush to get this out. It doesn't seem like the coronavirus is going to wipe out humanity. So we have a little extra time to get here. I am not stellar at ending books. I don't like ending them. I don't, when I like watch movies myself, I don't like these tight endings where everything like is tied together. Like I watched the ending of fucking Knives Out right there, and all I could think was, this is the most contrived horse shit of all time. And it was a great movie. Really, really good movie. Definitely go see it. Like my favorite movie ending of all time is the ending to Barton Fink. And this is not an appropriate type of novel to not have a strong resolution to all of your threads. And like there doesn't have to be like some happily ever after bullshit here, but I know that ending a story is one of my big weaknesses. So I'm really hoping for some help from you guys. And so far I'm like definitely getting some great help here. All right, so what do we have? So Spethiwa says, I'm not happy with your endings. I'm not going to go easy on you with this one. I fucking love the ending to Xananink. Oh my God. It's fucking amazing right there. The ending to The Right to Bear Arms is amazing. The ending to fucking Hawks of the Diner. Perfect. But Arcanist has no ending whatsoever. Rapasaurus, which you've read, I think the ending would get almost completely rewritten. Survival Mode has no kind of meaningful ending whatsoever. And everybody but me hated the ending to Xananink. They really did not like it. And I fucking loved it. So I'm just aware that my instincts for the reader are not good here. But yeah, like I feel so much more confident going into the final edit of this, specifically because of you guys. So thank you so much for being a part of this whole thing. You're going to get the largest shout outs possible
for being involved in this. And if I can do anything at all to help you with your own projects, like just consider, like, I feel like this is a real favor to me, and it's something that I'm happy to return. If you need anybody to like fucking disappear or a government overthrown or something like that, I'm on top of it. All right, love y'all. Penis pump. Real talk.